What initially drew you to work in the music industry, and can you go into some detail about the journey?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was kind of just like I feel like I fell into it. I was obviously Sam Devine from Defected's tour manager for maybe like 3 or 4 years, and that literally just came from me supporting at our raves and just for the love of music, and going to our shows and stuff. And then eventually, I think with tour managing, you have to have your friend or somebody that really knows you like inside out. Because of course there's lots of pressure in touring and stuff, and it's hard, and I think you need to have somebody that you like fully trust in terms of even just simple things of like booking flights and like me knowing exactly what she likes inside out. And then I started warming up for her a lot, and then I think when you start warming up for like especially a headliner, other headliners kind of look at what you do and want to book you as well. So I kind of just fell into the circuit that way, and then Defected signed me at Defected Croatia, and it came completely out of nowhere. I was just there supporting Sam and played a boat party, and then Wes sat me down and was like, "We want to sign you to the roster." So then it just feels like everything just kind of went up like that, and then now we're here with a disc on the wall, you know. So it goes so fast when it starts, but literally just for the love of music, I started.
Nice. So it wasn't necessarily your intention to
be?
No,
not in the slightest. I mean, I'm trained in like forensic science and stuff. Like I was border force before.
Oh my God, I actually never knew that.
Yeah, that's what I did. I was at border force. So when I started DJing, it was funny because obviously DJs come through the airport. So it was getting to a point where people were recognising me behind the desk. So I had to make a decision like, I can't do this now. I need to quit this. But that was my favourite job, even more over music.
That's amazing. Corinne, do you want to go into a bit about where you started and how you came about?
So I've always sang. I started singing when I was younger. And actually classical singing as well. I wanted to be an opera singer for a little while when I was a lot younger. But that is a lot of work. And it was a lot of training hours and things like that. And then I've always also just been a big music fan. Like music was played all the time when I was younger. My parents had music on all the time. My dad specifically liked house music and trance, so I kind of grew up listening to a lot of heavy trance music. And then I've just surrounded myself with music, I guess, and sang in choirs and things like that. And then I studied English at uni and wanted to work in book publishing and got a job in book publishing when I first moved to London, but it didn't stick, and I always did music outside of that. I was kind of volunteering in a studio in the evenings and going to gigs and meeting people, and then in the end just decided actually no, it's music that I want to do. And then I think around COVID time I made that full-on decision, like I need to do this, like go into music because it's what I want to do. And the only job available, which is really ironic, was a concert manager for an orchestra during COVID. That was the only job I seemed to be able to find and also get, which was a bit tricky. So I worked there, and then just through the studio and various contacts met some other people, then landed an internship at Polydor, the major, and then scouted for them for a little bit and was an assistant. And then, was lucky enough to be introduced to Anton Partridge, who started a good company, runs a good company. And here we are.
The rest is history.
The rest is history, as they say. Exactly.
Over to Laura.
Similarly to Jess, I kind of... actually, so the opposite to Jess. I didn't land in dance music immediately. I came out as a vocalist, more in pop music, because I grew up in a small town called Rugby in the Midlands. We didn't get any particularly cool electronic music coming through there at all. So my world was actually quite small until I moved to London at 18 to study music down at Goldsmiths. And before that, the only women that I'd ever seen in music were pop stars, you know. It's like I grew up like admiring these amazing, massive, magical kind of made up fantasy worlds that pop stars can build around them. So I was very, very influenced by that. And so I kind of just from the age of 16 when I started writing music, I was like hell bent on becoming an artist of some sort, and that's what I did. And it was only really through my work as a vocalist in dance music with others. So I did some stuff with Fortet and Sasha and some other people. Even though I was still making pop music, they took my vocals and put them on these massive dance tunes. And then I fell into dance music that way, really. And then I became a producer, just kind of through jealousy of seeing them tour with like a suitcase. I was like, I was in the rehearsal room with a full band and spending all this money getting a tour on going. And I was like, hang on a minute, like all these guys are like, you know, touring with a suitcase and a pair of headphones. I was like, that looks well good. So then I just started making dance music, and that was it, really.
Nice. Over to you, Hayley.
Also, I also went to Goldsmiths and studied music. Come on. I am a saxophonist, and then was like, I don't know, it was a bit weird. I was actually a classical saxophonist, which is kind of strange because when people think of a saxophone, they're like, yeah, so jazz. And I wasn't that. I wanted to be that, but I wasn't. And then I was like, the only thing that I'm good at is playing the saxophone. So I might as well go and study it. Because at the time it was like, what are you going to do at uni? And then I went to uni and I was like, actually, what I really like is radio, like just talking and music, like all in one. What a treat. And went into classical radio. So I worked at Radio 3 out of uni and then moved into pop because I kind of maybe went like an opposite way to you in that sort of sense where I was like, I want to be in pop music, which, yeah. And then I went to BBC Sounds and helped set up BBC Sounds. And then from there, I moved to Warner, where I now run their playlist strategy, which is really fun. So, yeah.
Thanks, everybody. In your experience, how would you describe the representation of women in the UK music industry when you first started, and has it evolved since? I'll put it back to you, Hayley. That's all right.
Yeah, of course. I think that people are often... There's always been like campaigning for more presence of women in the music industry, whether across everything, like whether that is like A&R, labels, again, like even media as well, and like how women are like depicted in music media and socials, things like that. And I hope I've got like the question right, but I think it has changed. I do think that we are moving in a good direction. I could be, obviously there are highs and lows, but I do think we're moving in a good direction. And I don't often praise social media, but I do actually think that that's had a really big impact on why we've managed to get to that place. And even just like panels like this and like being able to like share experiences with other people has become a lot more accessible. What I sometimes do get a bit frustrated with, and I was actually chatting to Jess about this just before we started, is why it has to be on one specific day. Like I do feel like we just need like a little bit more of that like throughout like the whole year. And so that's why I do think we are moving in a good direction, but we just want to see a bit more of it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point. And Jess, Laura, you're obviously coming at this from completely different worlds to Hayley's background. How do you find it? How has the progression been in terms of you and your performing and DJing aspects?
I mean, I think it's definitely changing. There is a shift. I do feel like one thing I don't like is, you know, when they say a women lineup. I think that's one thing that really just gets my goat, you know? Like, I don't ever like being a part of them. I think you're a DJ or you're a musician or you're a photographer. You're not a woman this, like, yeah, we're genders, but I don't think they're necessary to have those kinds of events. Because then again, I know that DJs, that producers, promoters are trying to do them to support us women, but I think in actual fact it's putting even more of a stigma between us, because then it becomes like, oh, we have to do these women only events, because you never really look at a lineup that's all guys and say this is a male only event. When was the last time I don't think I've ever seen that in all my 11 years in the industry ever. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but especially other DJs, do you enjoy being on those kinds of parties?
No, I think you're right that it shouldn't really. I think it creates more segregation a lot of the time. And I think like the most important thing for me, having seen kind of the progression over from when I entered the industry in around 2009, it's like we need the guys to get on board with supporting women, and it needs to be second nature. You know, it can't be just be this one day a year, and it can't be just for the special women's only event or anything. It's got to be just normalized that it's like women is just there's equal opportunity for everybody, you know, on these lineups and things like that. One area where I'd say I've seen rapid change is in recording studios, in terms of seeing more female presence and female engineers, or just more diversity in general, queer engineers, and just more diverse energy in those spaces. Because even 10 years ago, when I was doing a lot more live music and like live sessions and radio sessions, it's always like some, you know, the nerdy white dudes that don't know how to speak to, can like record a great drum kit, but don't really know how to speak to any women or anyone that doesn't look like them. And I think that has changed massively. Like any recording studio you'll walk into, especially the big ones in London now, you'll see a lot more female engineers, and that's been a really positive change.
I think the songwriters as well. I don't think any record I've done, this is no like disrespect to males, I've never had a male songwriter. It's always been women. Yeah. So it feels like that's a nice shift. That I don't know if maybe it's because women are more emotional, you know, they can get better songs out. And it's great to see. It's amazing to see.
And Corinne, what about you? Have you seen, I guess, coming from your immediate shift into like a record label world, obviously that was in a major, just wondering how you've seen that progression?
I think there's always been women in positions of power in the roles that I've had, and the jobs that I've worked in the music industry. But there have always been significantly more men. And I think it stood out more that there were women in positions of power in the higher up levels because there were more men around. And so I think that's something I've always noticed. It hasn't necessarily shifted because in the grand scheme of things, I haven't been working in the industry that long. So I think for me, I went into a major label, a big company where there were these women who were making huge decisions and making things happen. And that was very inspiring as someone who went in at an assistant level, and made me feel like, well, if they could do it, I can do it. But something that did always stand out to me is they were minimal. And I think that is still something that needs to shift. It needs to be an equal amount of men and women in positions of power as well. So it doesn't feel like such a stark contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. This one seems like a ridiculous question to even ask because I know what the answer is going to be, but I guess it's more explaining it. Have you ever faced any particular challenges or barriers as a woman in this industry, whether in terms of recognition, opportunities, or general treatment? It's a bit of a loaded question.
Not personally, no. I know people that have. The only one time that I can think of that I was ever sort of like, not targeted, but like my gender made me feel uncomfortable, was I was getting booked for a party. I can't remember who it was or where it was, but it was about 6-7 months ago. And they were asking what my requirements were, rider, tech rider and stuff. And I told them everything I needed to be able to perform. And the promoter came back to me and said, okay, brilliant. Like, do you need a guy to come in and use that equipment for you whilst you're there? As in, do you need a man there mixing for you whilst you stand behind the decks and pretend to be? And I didn't do the show in the end. I literally, me and my manager were like, what? Is that for real? Like, I remember replying saying, no, I do that myself. I touch the buttons, so I know what I'm doing. But I could not believe that was even something that I was asked just because of my gender.
Do you reckon that had happened before, and that's maybe why?
I just don't know. I was gobsmacked, like literally gobsmacked. I ended up saying, I don't think this is the right show for me. I think I'm gonna politely pass on that one.
Yeah, that is some wild shit.
I couldn't actually believe it. I was gobsmacked. Do you know what? I'll find the screenshot and I'll show you it. I'll dig it out.
What about you, Hayley? Been in different areas in the music industry. What have you faced or come across?
A lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time it's mainly little things that add up to be a big thing rather than anything big that I've ever sort of like had. I don't know, is like microaggression the right word for it maybe? Yeah. And it's just the same old shit a lot of the time, like having to fight a lot harder to get yourself on tables at awards, even just to like make the representation of women even seem like seen compared to the amount of men in the room. And just like small things, even just like little meetings, like not feeling like you can speak up, but then actually doing it just because you kind of have to. In all fairness, like similar maybe to what Corinne has said, I have had 2 male managers in my career, and both of them have been incredible. So I think I might have got that wrong. But, you know, I'm just trying to think about it. Maybe 3 male managers like in my career, but all of them have been really incredible and like always like fought for me and like try to give me like a little bit more confidence as well. So I guess I would recommend trying to find those people who you do know have your back. And realistically, I mean, I'm not sure if everyone agrees, but I think men are always going to listen to men more over a woman, just because that's just how it goes. So if you can find men that are going to sort of speak on behalf of you and get your voice heard and be that like, what's like the right word for it? Like
champion?
Yeah, I guess. Then try and find them, because I do think they're out there. It's just there tends to be a lot more people that don't appreciate that.
I've got a new male agent, and he is shit hot. That's just supporting women. He's called Paul at MB Artists, and he's honestly so refreshing and lovely. Like, all my agents I've worked with have been incredible, but Paul feels like slightly different. Like when I started with him, when they're asking about like sort of where I see myself and what I want to do, I was obviously saying like if I could support any artist, that's like it would be like MK or Sonny Fodera, and he came back to me and was just like, no, we're not supporting. We're going to go and get you your own stadium tour. Just like little things like that. I was just like, oh, that's really nice to like feel the belief from especially from a guy. It was lush.
When you said the small things, Hayley, something really rang true. And I remember those small things adding up. And in my career, I realise I'm not part of the panel, but I'm giving my 2 cents anyway. Like, I distinctly remember being in rooms with sort of 50% women, 50% men. And if a man asked the question, say the big boss is a man, he asked the question, he would look strategically, without knowing it really, at all the men in the room for the answer, not the women. And it is those little things that add up, isn't it? Like those kind of things over a period of time, just that batter you down slowly but surely, or make you rise against it.
I just think it like makes you feel, I agree with you, like it makes you lose faith to start with, but now I'm just really angry.
Yeah.
So I just don't like, I'm just permanently angry. In like a nice way. Do you know, like a nice way where I'm like, something has to change. So now I'm just like, yeah, I'll open my gob. Why not? Like,
Just
someone's
makes
got
you
her.
exactly speak a little bit louder, doesn't it? And just feel like you have to, I don't know, I think from my experience as well, being in rooms with like, there were always women in the room, but it was predominantly men, more men than women. And just feeling like you have to, I don't know, set up that little bit straighter and kind of give yourself a bit of a pep talk before you go in. Just say it, you know, and know that you deserve to be there as much as everyone else. So yeah, it is. But those are small things that we shouldn't necessarily have to think about.
No.
When we go into it.
And I don't think like the average wonderful male who, you know, is very in touch with their feminine side and understands female concerns would even necessarily know some of those things, because they've never had to experience it before. So it's not that they are being assholes about it. They've never had to experience it. So it's new to them. Yeah. Can anyone share an experience where being a woman either worked in your favor or presented a particular obstacle in your career?
I have one very specific example of this, but it was before I was making dance music. So this is again in like major label pop world. I wasn't signed to a major label, but there was a period of time where we did a lot of kind of meetings and were pulled in. There was this one female A&R who loved our project. The project was called Femme, i.e. woman in French. All the English people would pronounce it femme, but you know, it was a girl band essentially. It was me and my 2 best mates. It was like MIA, Santigold, Robin meets the Shangri-Las or something, you know, lots of coordinated dance routines. It was empowered music made by women for women, right? this A&R loved us, and we got pulled into Ireland for this conversation. And then we obviously had to meet the wider A&R team, or the senior A&Rs. And I remember the first thing he asked me, this one guy was like, I won't name him out loud, he probably is still working at Ireland, I'm sure he probably runs a joint now. But he said to us, I really think that you're alienating half of your potential audience by not having men with instruments in the band. I was like, mate. Wow. Right then and there, I was like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. Is it? Like, you just do not understand this at all. And it was the first time that it was very obvious to me. It was like, there's a woman A&R who really understands this, sees the value in it, sees the potential for it to connect with a certain audience. And here's a man with a bit more power who just can't relate, just doesn't relate to it at all, you know? And I was like, okay, that's, and that was interesting to me, because I think that's the issue that we come up against again and again, especially in dance music. It's a lot of the record labels, the promotions companies, the agencies are run by white men of a certain age who essentially like to support people that look like younger versions of themselves, you know, because you can relate easier to that. They do relate. It's human nature, you know. It's like you relate to people that look like you, or you have, like, say, some kind of common energy with. And unfortunately, a lot of that, is you know, say, white men employing more white men. So it's, I think, for me, to see the biggest progression in the dance music industry, it's seeing more women, people of color, more diverse minorities in general, like running, say, the labels in positions of power where they can make decisions. I think you see a lot more rapid progress that way. We're definitely seeing progress, but it can feel a bit slow.
Yeah, it definitely feels a bit slow. What steps do you think venues, promoters, or labels could take in making the industry more inclusive and supportive of women, especially in leadership roles?
There was something that Jaguar from Radio 1 is initiating about having it put into the male DJs and performers contracts that they will not play unless there is another woman on the lineup. And I think that's incredible that is something that's even being spoke about, because it will change, especially with your big headliners, because promoters want to book them. So if that's a requirement, then they'll make it happen. So yeah, shouts to Jag for doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah, I think it's a common misconception, isn't it? Like, I've heard it amongst male friends of mine that I assumed were like allies, where we talked about like a festival lineup, not necessarily in dance music, and I've called out the fact that there's like 4 women on a 100-person lineup or whatever. And honestly, one response that I heard from somebody that I thought was an ally was, there just ain't that many good female musicians around. And I was like, are you serious? Oh, yeah.
It's just not an excuse anymore. I mean, it's never been an excuse, but also there are so many women, non-binary people making incredible music, playing incredible music out in all different genres of dance as well as music in general. Some even leading some genres of dance. So I mean, in this day and age, you can't, like, that was never an excuse, but there's just nothing to stop it now. And it's about making sure, you know, men, allies, people of all genders, making sure that things don't go ahead if women aren't on the lineup. Just as simple as that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that comes down to programming and playlisting as well. Like, I think that editors should hold themselves accountable to make sure that they are programming women in their music. Like, just because I'm really pulling something out here, just because you've got like the Tiestos and the David Guettas of the world, and you've got like a mainstream house music list, why shouldn't that mean that like somebody else who maybe hasn't had that that access to fame, maybe because of their gender, who knows, probably, but just because of that, why shouldn't they get prioritized? And I think that is something that actually needs more work being done. It's great that we're looking at lineups, and it's great that we're looking at live, but I think we should hold people accountable for the way that they're actually introducing that music to people as well, and that discovery element to music is also a big thing. Yeah. I also think it's really funny how when we hear like a really shitty story on this panel, we all just laugh. Like, that really just says it all, because there's not even like, it's just like, oh yeah, like there's no surprise, is there?
No, I really wish there was.
It's just like,
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think in a lot of ways, like a playlist editor, you, for example, you're like a modern day music journalist. And yeah, I think everybody in that position has to be held accountable to represent people of all varying backgrounds.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Have you seen any specific changes around it within the industry regarding harassment or inappropriate behaviour towards women? And how can we continue to ensure safety and respect for everybody?
I mean, I guess something that came out in the press not recently, like a little while ago, was obviously Ray and Lady Gaga being sexually assaulted within a music production session, which I think probably happens a lot, but for some ladies of their power to come out and talk about it, I think it's just nuts to even open that conversation. Personally, I've never experienced anything like that, and I wouldn't want to, but like I thought that was incredibly brave that they spoke about that, because unfortunately it does happen. I mean, look at what's going on with P. Diddy, you know, like it's wild to think that that's even a factor within music, and brave women like Lady Gaga and Ray speaking up about it is just like, go on, yes,
Yeah,
go girls.
for sure.
Say it.
I was gonna say, I think we've all heard stories. I don't know if any of us have been through it, but we all know of things that have happened. And I think what has been clear over the past couple of years is there are more and more conversations happening about it, and people are talking about it more. It's less pushed under the rug, under the carpet. People actively speak about it in the industry, especially the female and non-binary community. It's spoken about a lot, which is what I've noticed. And I think that's the way that things should keep moving forward, is active conversations about it, people not being afraid to talk about it. And obviously, like Jess said, when big celebrities and artists come out and start talking about it, it makes that conversation more accessible for the people that feel like they can't talk about it. They've been through something that they can't talk about. And that's what's important, is just to keep talking.
Yeah.
I think, definitely.
I think I've been lucky in a similar way to you, Hayley, in that like I've had all male bosses in the music industry, but they've all been amazing. And I think I see more and more of people males being supportive in those roles and actually actively going out of their way, at least in a recorded music record label type setup, to ask, to constantly check in with their female staff and make sure that certain things are making them feel comfortable and that they should feel free to come forward, and if anything was to go awry, kind of thing. But yeah, it feels like that's getting better. Even in the like 15 years that I've worked in music, I don't think I'd feel as comfortable then as I would now. So it feels like something has changed even in that short period.
What do you reckon that is? I don't know. Sorry, not to like.
The reason for the change?
Yeah. What do you think?
Do you know what my bad brain says that? Then this, I'm just not going to say that out loud.
Okay.
I think there's more fear from men, like male bosses, of being found out for brushing stuff under the carpet. Yeah. And I don't know if that's the main, but I'm sure it plays a part.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one positive thing for all of its kind of misgivings and our damaged mental health through social media. Actually, the control it gave people in terms of telling their own story and being in control of that story is very, very powerful. So I think that's been a huge kind of catalyst for that kind of change, you know, because if you're brave enough to speak out about it, there will be, you know, consequences for that. And generally that finds its audience, doesn't it? It's like those stories, they break really quickly when they do. So that's positive for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that got everybody juices going. What role do you think mentorship plays in helping women progress in the music industry? And have you guys had any particular female mentors or role models?
I've never had a female mentor, Is that really sad?
No.
I don't think I have either.
Bar me ma.
I think I've had mentors without them being mentors, you know, but like unofficial. Although I do think, and I've heard great things about mentoring, and I have a lot of friends who mentor, especially for queer folk and people of colour, and I think it's really important that those things exist. To elevate those people and if anything, confidence I think is such a huge thing. But the mentors that I've had have all been men, which also I think maybe is a good thing, because think like a man, you know, like sometimes that might sometimes that might help. I don't know.
What about personally rather than just professionally? Any female mentors?
My mum.
Yeah. My mum's up there.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, I've got this video of her on my phone from like years ago. This is so deep, isn't it? But it's just like her and I don't know, it was when like I was big on like just filming everything. I don't know why, I just went through a real stage of being like, that's funny, I'm going to film it. Which I'm actually really grateful for now, because there's like a lot of memories. But there's this one video and it's like really bad angle of her and she's outside. I think she's just had road rage actually. And she just looks at the camera and she goes, "Don't let the fuckers get you down." And I was like, that's true though, isn't it? Like, so it's just like those little bits that you like hold on to.
I think role models for me, obviously, when I started, it was Sam Devine and her best friend, one of my best friends as well, Camilla Jelani, who now does brand partnerships at Defected and DJ Mag. As I was coming out, because there's like 10, 11 years age gap between us. So one thing they really did drum into me was like to have a thick skin. And obviously, when you're coming into this industry, you think everything's all shiny and lovely and everyone's going to be nice to you. But the girls really did drum into me that you need to be prepared for, like, because you're going to have bad days and you're going to have good days. And I'll be forever grateful for that, because it really did prepare me for, say if I didn't get a booking I wanted, or a record got turned down at the label, that I kind of was like prepared that, yeah, you are going to have these tricky days and that is okay. That's part of the journey. And like you, my mum is just like my biggest supporter and my bestest friend ever. And if I'm having a wobble on a day, like, I'll call her and say, I can't do this, I'm getting stressed. And she'll be like, she literally says to me, "Man up, pull your big girl trousers up." And I'm like, right, let's go again, like, fine. And then I'm absolutely fine. So I just think having really strong females is so important, because it makes you feel like I can actually do this, you know?
Would any of you lot consider mentoring?
Yeah, I think so. I think especially when I was kind of coming into more contemporary music and then dance music, and also learning what A&R was in kind of my much earlier roles, and that I've always kind of known that that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know specifically what an A&R does, like day to day, and how it all worked. I think I didn't have a specific female mentor, but I knew, because there weren't that many, of female A&Rs in dance music who were making changes and signing these big artists. And I kind of became like almost like a fangirl of these people. How that's so sick that they're like signing these people, making these changes, and they're surrounded by men, but they're doing it anyway. And I think watching panels and talks and going to see these people live, and also just learning about what they were working on and the projects that they were working on, was inspiring for me. Made me feel like, well, if they can do it, then I can. And I think that was very, very vital in making me feel like I could just keep going and get there. And so, yeah, I think it would be nice to be able to give that back and offer that back,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
100%.
We'll get you set up.
Can I quickly also just say, I feel like, sorry, I hope I'm not hogging the mic. I agree with that, because I think there are a lot of women who can often get, I just think everyone actually, but I think mainly women, non-binary people, often know that they want to work in a specific industry, but they don't actually have the tools to know what it is that they do want to do there, especially in music. And I think that's maybe where mentoring can like maybe we should all just become mentors and help even if you are like, I think similar to what you're saying about like your friendships that you've built in like the industry as well. I rely so heavily on my friendships, and I have like amazing women in my life from like every single job that I've done, but I have to talk to them to know what else is out there and like what other opportunities are out there, and what maybe like I've never done A&R in my life. Maybe I could chat to you, Corinne. Do you know what I mean? Like, and be like, oh, is that something that I'd want to go into? Because I just think a lot of the time, unless you have those opportunities to find out what you are capable of doing, that can often hinder you, or at least like you end up feeling stunted, and like you maybe have something like you've got the fire there, but it hasn't grown, you know?
I think it's important to know that like we can do anything we put our mind to, and that's both genders, you know. Like me, Sam and Camilla, we launched Divine Sound, which is Sam's record label. We were just 3 women that just really loved music and wanted to give a platform to more up and coming artists, because let's have it right, majors and stuff will only sometimes look at like your more established artists. It's really important, like that's why I've started Superstore with a good company, that we do give a platform to the up and comers, because they've got to get their break as well, right? And we ended up just literally ploughing everything we knew about music into that label. We got a number 1 on Beatport and Tracksource within 2 years, and I think we've got about 50,000 followers across all the socials. And then it ended up being brought by Simon Dunmore at Defected when we were ready to go on and do something else, which we had no knowledge of how to run a record label, like nothing, except we love house music. And it just shows that if you've got the passion and the actual love for something, you can go for it and just take it to the next level.
Do you believe that some women in music are given opportunities based more on their gender than their talent? Or do you think women in the scene need to work harder to prove themselves than their male counterparts? Da, da, da.
I would say realistically, I think it's a bit of both, depending on who you are and what you're trying to achieve in the industry. This certainly does seem to be a lot of tokenism, and there's a certain type of DJ that maybe isn't technically a DJ, but they look fantastic and they have a whole online world that people buy into, and they have fans of their own. You know, I'm not knocking that. That's very different. And then there's a whole other DJ which is more about their technical skill, and you know, they're there for the love of music, and it's just different. And you say can't knock either of those things really, but they're not to be confused. I don't think, you know, it's a hard one to explain, but they both definitely exist.
Yeah. Side by side. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Good to go. So there's been a lot of talk about women in music events or showcases, as you were just saying, like it's a 1 day a year type affair. Sometimes, do you believe these events are helpful for promoting gender equality, or do they inadvertently create further segregation in the industry?
I think that's also a bit of both. Because it gives us all the opportunity to be sat here right now having these conversations that can not only like inspire other people, but also know that we've all got each other's backs and all of those good things. But if we're not doing this on a year-round level, then there is a fundamental problem, because we can't just like, that is like the tokenism side of it, isn't it? It's exactly the same with Pride, Black History Month. Like you see all of this, like how many times has it got to June and you've seen rainbows everywhere on random brands that like, you're like, hang on a second. And then when you look into it, like, I don't know, I could, yeah. When you look into it, it's like, oh, I don't know, there's been some mad homophobia case, like however long ago for that specific company. So that, I'm not saying that's everyone, obviously, and it is great. And it does make people feel seen, and it does make, and those people deserve to feel seen as well. But it would just be nice if it could, similar to what you're saying about the all women lineup, like it would just be nice if that could just be a thing, just without it being like women, you know, like can't we just exist in like the same world that like a man does, really.
Doesn't need to be
I'm
regularly
sure.
pointed out.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyone
I feel
else
like I've
have
just
any?
really gone up and down and round in a lot of
No.
different circles, but
No, I don't think you have at all. I think, yeah, I'm with you on that. I think they can further segregate for people who aren't inclined to listen to others' views, for sure. I don't think they cause personally, I could be wrong, but I don't think they cause segregation for people that are open and willing to listen to women or minorities' opinions on things. But yeah, I think it does a bit of both, doesn't it?
I also think, we're in a very strange world at the moment, like now specifically, where I'm like, these things really do have to happen because we're gonna, in my personal opinion, we're gonna enter a stage in all of our lives where we are going to have to fight a lot harder for the things that we really believe in, and that voice as a collective group is really important, and that's the only thing that's going to make us not get dampened.
I mean, yeah, not going to get super deep, but touching on it, like America, just that's the thing. That's all that needs to be said, isn't it? And like, yeah, what can happen in countries where you don't think that could ever be possible have happened. So yeah, I think it's more important now than ever. Yeah, completely agree. Is it a problem that when a woman in music is successful, her gender often becomes part of the narrative? I mean, we've touched on this already, right? I think we'd all collectively like it not to be, oh, look,
Yeah.
it's a really good female DJ.
Yeah.
She's shit compared to the men, but she's pretty good for a woman.
I think, 100%. I think if there's no context behind the situation, you are talking about a DJ being either male or female or non-binary. If there's no reason to say male in that context, then there shouldn't be a reason to say female or non-binary.
No, makes no sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip a couple of questions because I feel like we've touched on some of them already. Some argue that dance music's underground roots are inherently male dominated and that women will never truly be able to break into the real scene. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree with that. Yeah, really loads. I mean, I'm not going to call out labels or anything like that, but like you have got some of your big underground labels that does feel like a boys' club, and very rarely there is a girl or a lady that breaks through. I can't think of one in particular, but yeah, I think underground does feel like more of a boys' club, whereas your dance poppy world is more, I would say, female dominated. I don't know why that is, because there's so many shit hot DJs that are underground that I can list off now that should have a breakthrough, but maybe it's a little bit harder for them to bang the doors down. There is a boys' club in underground music, and I think everybody kind of knows that. It's a shame. It's a shame.
We kind of accidentally touched on this in the office the other day, Corinne, where we were talking about tech house DJs.
Yeah.
And you know much more about that space than I do, and I couldn't think of one female. I think that's part of the problem, right? You were saying there's loads.
There are loads, and I think it's maybe more of a conversation of the scene and education about the scene and who is actually moving through, and not necessarily giving, how do I phrase this? Not necessarily giving women kind of more, actually giving women more of a spotlight within that scene. I think, because there are women who are DJing, people of all genders who are DJing and making good music in every scene. They are there. But I think it's making sure that people are educated on that scene and who is actually within it and making good music. Because it's just giving women more of a platform within each scene, not necessarily pushing them to be there. They are already there.
Yeah.
It's just making sure we talk about them.
Do you think it's the case of like if you're a woman and you happen to be a football fan, like you had loads of when you were growing up, everyone be like, tell me the offside rule.
Yeah.
It literally is a bit like that.
It's
Isn't
very
it?
like that.
But in music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I suppose there's a responsibility of the whole industry and like going back to like playlisters, tastemakers across the board, anybody that's running like social channels that are related to dance music and stuff, for everybody to have the same opinion and mindset as to raise everybody up at the same time and elevate people in a way that makes sense.
It all loops back into each other. It's the thing of, like you were saying, editorial promoters, just making sure that there's equal people on lineups and there's that platform there. Because I mean, how are you going to grow and get more of an audience and build conversation around you as an artist if you're not given the platform that everyone else is? Yeah,
I think you're dead right. But unfortunately, my opinion of it is that is really fundamentally hard to change, because like online on Instagram, I live in this perfect, progressive, diverse, amazing, queer, black, women dominated space. It's like, oh wow, dance music's really brilliant right now. And then it was a year before last, I went to IMS, ADE and BMC in 1 year, and it's like that little bubble of mine was not fucking shattered, it was obliterated. I came back and I was like, what? Like the only women I saw were at one of the She Said So mixer. Like that was it. That was the only women I saw at ADE that whole weekend, really. Apart from like, one person in Hoxton Hotel. And it was just all white guys of a certain age, 30s, 40s, 50s, wearing black bomber jackets, black trousers of some sort and a black fucking t-shirt. And literally they didn't even look you in the eye as you walked into a space. They weren't, it's like, considering that's meant to be a networking conference, you may as well have been invisible or as a woman or a black person or anybody that didn't look like them in those spaces. You did not exist. So I left that whole summer doing those conferences. I was like, yeah, that is not for me. I'm not going back there. I'd rather go back to my Instagram, fantasy world. And then I play and I put on events where that's very much at the forefront of my mind is diversity, because I think that's so important. If you can't see people doing stuff that look like you will not bring up a new generation of people that will think that they can do the same thing, but that is not going to come from the white dudes that are already making a lot of money. Like they're making money. They're not going to change. So I'm sorry if that's a little bit negative, but let's be realistic. That part of the scene that Jess talks about, that underground, that is not going to change anytime soon unless they start to see the value in that more diverse talent making them some money.
Do you think that's a matter of time, or do you think is that not going to come till the next generation?
I think we need people like you running the labels and the events. I think it needs to be a whole shift of infrastructure in terms of the people in the industry roles. Because you back women, you actively have to look to sign more diverse talent, and a lot of people do not have the impetus, or even they don't want to do it, because why? The model right now is working for them, and so we really need just different people in those roles to be able to bring up like a sea change in that sense.
You think that comes from record labels first and foremost?
100%, yeah. I mean, how many women-owned record labels, apart from the DJ-owned ones, can you think of in dance music? Never mind a black woman owning a record label. It's like, we need to see some dramatic change in that area, and I think that would change things.
Yeah, I agree.
It does seem to be a particularly heavily male-dominated genre, dance music.
The tech house especially, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll work on it, right, Corinne?
The entirety of house music and women, and it lands on you, Corinne.
Let's do this. I'd love to.
Females across all areas of the music industry are being recognised now more than ever. I think we've all agreed to a certain point. Do you think this change is related to men becoming more inclusive, or is it something else?
I think there might be an element of there being really powerful women that maybe are frightening the males a little bit, which is great. Like I can think of one, Kelly Lee. Like she's so powerful. Like she does not take no shit, no for an answer. And I think really important that we have females like that now that are banging down doors. And yeah, some guys do need to be told, you know. And I think it's important that we have people like her. Like you have Honey Dijon, who's obviously LGBTQ, and that's just insane. And again, she doesn't take no for an answer, and she's probably one of my biggest inspirations ever. So I think there needs to be more women like that. I think we get a little bit frightened, and I know I specifically do when I've worked at certain places and within like maybe radio stations and stuff. I've been a little bit frightened to sort of ask for more, you know. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it maybe is because it feels like it's very male dominated, but I definitely think that having a woman on your team, like now my new manager is a female, and I've never had like my team representation to be a woman. It's always been men, and I'm not there's not one that's bad or one that's good, but they're just different. They feel different, like having a male dominated team and now having a woman on the team. I'm noticing certain little things are different, and that's not a good or a bad thing. They are just genuinely different. Like I feel like she understands me loads, and it's refreshing, you know, to have a woman fight in your corner as well, which it feels nice.
Good. From like the label side of the world, gals, have you noticed there being a change with men being more inclusive?
There's been like a few like moments where recently where I've been a bit like, you fully know that that's pissed me off, so why haven't you said anything? Just like that, like a bit like, why haven't you said anything? Like, back me up. Like, you just sat and agreed with me in private, so why are you not saying it in front of, like? And I think without that, like, and without those people being like, actually, you know, yeah, she's got a point or whatever, and that doesn't just go for women, but it has big impact on how women are perceived and how it's perceived within labels as well. And I agree with Jess, like, we've got to stop saying sorry. We've got to stop apologising for things after we've said it. I'm pretty sure I've probably apologised a million times since doing this panel, but like, whether that's in my head or out loud, do you know what I mean? But like, we have to stop apologising for like saying stuff that is usually 10 times more legit than what the blokes are saying anyway. I don't know, like.
I see that point, but also I do think, coming from the artist side, there is definitely a kind of a risk of being, you know, branded as the difficult one, you know, if you stand up for yourself. And, you know, there is still that kind of old school, stupid diva thing, you know, that for any woman that kind of speaks out, which is just nonsense, really. But I think it all comes down to money. If you can make enough money for these people, they'll let you do what you want to do. And that's really the crux of it. Fucking capitalism, mate. Always. It's like that's it. You know, that's why the Honey Dijon, she makes a lot of money. She kind of, you know, she's incredible. And like, you know, the techno scene, you know, Amelie Lenz and Charlotte DeWitt, like they're all at the absolute top of their game, like leading those genres, doing massive stages. But it's because they sell shed tons of tickets. They're absolutely making a lot of money for the industry. This is a commercial industry. And so unfortunately, if you're not making any money and, you know, they don't really relate to you or can't relate to you, and probably insecure men with a mother complex, they ain't going to back you, you know? So you have got to fight a bit harder, but you just have to, like, yeah, it comes down to money. For me, on the artist side, that's what I see. Like when there's artists come through that are breakthrough, they suddenly start to shift. That I've come from a more diverse background. It's usually because they're suddenly making a lot of money for somebody.
Makes a lot of sense.
I add a little bit to that as well. I also think keeping on the money side of things, when you do have a lot of men in higher up positions who are making more money than women in label positions as well, I think that's why it often is harder for women to speak, because it's usually women who are in, like, when they're building up, it's usually them who stay in, like,
the trenches.
Yeah. I don't want to say the trenches, but you know,
it's the trenches.
Like,
it's the trenches.
And they are there for longer because it's harder to progress. So then it's harder for women to get into those positions to then make it really clear that it shouldn't just be about the money. But I agree, it is capitalism. think I say that every day. Making a cup of tea, like, oh, capitalism.
So for anybody watching, Laura's had to run off in typical female juggling fashion. Her child is sick and she's had to go. So we will resume with a few more questions. Next one being, are female DJs and producers actually supporting each other, or is the sisterhood just a PR move?
I think it does probably go on in some places, but I know the circle that I work with on a regular basis, we all are so about uplifting each other. I have so much fun. Like the people I regularly work with at the moment are like Alex Mills, Hayley May, Kelly Lee, and they're so like there's room for everybody, and it's just so refreshing because there really is room for everybody, and it's way more fun working at this level with your mates. You know, it's so much more fun. So if that does kind of go on, I think it's more sad, you know. I think there's no competition in this industry, more like blinkers on, and just like I saw something that Clooney said on a podcast literally on my way in, and he said about Eminem has this way of trying to work like a horse, where he just has his blinkers on, looks at his own finish line, and that's why he's successful, because he doesn't listen to like looking at anybody as competition. I think that's the right way to be, especially as women. It's way more fun when we're uplifting each other, because we need to do it, because there's not many of us that are in the industry, you know. I think it's important.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the same goes on it doesn't have to be just a DJ producer type question. Do you ladies feel that that's a similar situation in more sort of professional office type roles in the industry?
I think so. I think I'm very lucky to have a very strong group of female friends around me that work in music, and we've all spoken about the struggles that we've had getting to where we are now, and having to fight for your position, and you know, having to have conversations that you don't want to have, and feeling like you need to back yourself and tell yourself that you deserve to be there and everything like that. So I don't think, from my point of view and my experience, that women do back each other because they know that what everyone else is going through. And there isn't a reason why it would be fake necessarily. I think every woman that I've met in the industry and worked with has experienced what I've experienced, and the other way around. And I feel like that there is a solid support network there. We wouldn't have got to where we are now if women weren't supporting each other. So, yeah.
Hayley, any thoughts?
I think I have thoughts. I think. I actually really agree, and I hope that my answer doesn't make it seem like I don't agree with that, because I know that I am lucky enough to have a group of women around me like that. But when I have been speaking to those women, there have been cases that they have experienced where they feel that maybe because women don't get those opportunities as much, there has been some sort of a little bit of like, move over, that's mine. Or like, I don't know, rather than like, it feels like we almost have to, because of the opportunities being smaller, there's obviously, you've still got the same amount of women trying to go for that opportunity. And I think sometimes I've heard from other people where that has impacted them. I hope that doesn't make it seem like I'm slagging us off, because obviously I'm not. I just feel like it's almost like a survival of the fittest type of thing, which sounds quite savage, but you have got to look out for yourself, haven't you? Yeah.
I speaking just in myself, like I naturally feel more competitive with other women, because I don't know whether that's just an ingrained thing, like even in my personal life as much as professionally.
I also think that's the media, though, a lot of the time. Yeah. I could really go on to one now. I think that the media purposely pits women against other women. Our whole entire lives, our whole entire mums' lives and their mums, we've only ever seen women of a certain type be presented in front of us. If we aren't ever seen to be depictive of that, and that changes over time. I'm going really like aside from music now, but it really does impact how we all see each other. And if we don't fit that certain vision or like that certain thing that has been glorified, which is also is never actually okay or right, because there's always going to be a problem no matter what you look like. And I don't know, actually, I'm not an artist. Jess, maybe you could speak more on this. Like, I'm not an artist in the public eye. But I think that can often have an impact on how women see other women, just because out of no fault of our own, just out of what society is unfortunately fallen into. Sorry, that's really depressing.
No.
I think there's one thing that like really caught my attention that someone's doing at the minute, and Kelly Lee, the singer-songwriter, has got her own podcast with Red Bull, and it's called You Know My Voice, and the podcast is all about uncredited writers and songwriters where they've written for somebody and the record's going really well and they're not a featured artist, or they haven't been credited right. And she's done 2 seasons of it. I'm pretty sure she's maybe in season 2 now. I'm pretty sure there's been one man on the interview side. The whole other season is women, of how they've done records for big artists, haven't been credited, the record's gone in the top 10. I just think that alone is so sad. It just seems to be all the women that can't fight, like haven't got somebody fighting enough for them to be credited. And that's something when I go into my sessions that I'd like to celebrate the more the vocalists and the songwriters. I'd never understand why a vocal house producer wouldn't want the record to be like Jess Bass featuring this person, because you wouldn't have a vocal record if it wasn't for that singer on there. And 9 times out of 10, they are the women that are singing it. So it's a really interesting podcast that you should have a listen to. It's nuts, some of the stories on there that happen to the women. Nuts.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to give that a listen. I feel like it might make me quite furious. So. How do you, when we touched on this a little bit before, but to get a bit more involved, how do you think social media has influenced opportunities for women in music? Has it been a tool for empowerment, or has it created new challenges?
I think, which is something that seems to be a recurring theme, is it's a bit of both. I think there have been things like this, like panels and talks and podcasts and clips of those where women are given the opportunity to speak about how they feel and how they see things from their point of view, have been helpful to make broader conversations happen across the industry and across just the creative industries in general, not just music. But then it's also a platform for, which comes with it, I mean, it's just natural, it's a platform for argument and controversy and people being pointed at and blamed for stuff.
Comparison as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you can't escape one without the other, but it's important. Social media is a platform where people can say how it is and be honest, and that's only ever going to be a tool for moving things in the right direction as well. So bit of both.
Yeah, I think you could go into a minefield with social media and stuff, couldn't you? And it's quite an in-depth arguments to be had, pros and cons. Okay, we're going to end it on hopefully quite a positive note, and we'll see what you all have to say. Looking ahead, what changes do you hope to see in the industry over the next 5 to 10 years to ensure true gender equality?
I think maybe just more females on your really big festival lineups. I was just looking at quite a few of them before I did this panel, and there's so many big festivals that are just really heavily, like sort of 85% all
vile,
men.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's something that I'd like to see change. Your big festivals with more, even if we get it to 60-40, that's still a massive change, but I feel like that is still 5 years away. But so yeah, that would be for me, your festivals.
Yeah, agree. But also more women in very significant positions of power in labels and publishers, radio stations, agencies, everywhere, basically. kind of going back to the point I made earlier of just being able to look around and see an equal amount of men and women making big changes, and not just men with a sprinkle of women in there, which is how it has felt. A little sprinkle. Yeah.
I agree. I agree with Corinne. I think there's an opportunity to do that, but we all have to be quite committed to showing, to like supporting and plotting what that growth looks like in a way. And that comes down to managers across the industry, from all types of places, and the voices that are listened to and heard, like they need to start speaking out against this inequality and putting into place what we could be doing more of. Sometimes I'm like, what could we be doing more of? I'm burnt out and I don't know what else to do more of. Do you know what I mean? But
It's exhausting sometimes.
yes, it is exhausting sometimes. But you got to keep fighting the good fight, all of that good stuff.
Well, we're all done. Just want to say thank you to everybody, Jess, Corinne, Hayley and Laura that had to leave us. It's been a healthy discussion. Thank you, everybody.